You're watching Truth versus Hype. This 14-page FIR by the Aam Aadmi Party government against Reliance and top UPA ministers on allegations that they colluded to rig gas prices has brought to the surface a long smouldering controversy. Over the next 30 minutes, are these all wild, baseless charges, as Reliance and the government claims? Or did India's biggest corporate receive special favours, with inconvenient voices being shunted out, leading to a loss of thousands of crores? Or, as is often the case, the truth more textured, lying somewhere in between? Since Reliance struck gas in the KG-D6 block of the Krishna-Godavari basin in 2002, seen as a validation of allowing private players into gas and oil, controversy has never been far.
The FIR, based on a complaint by former bureaucrats, refers to the first controversy that broke out in the tenure of Murli Deora, the then oil minister, who was accused of colluding with Reliance to push up the prices of gas with the help of the government. The reality, however, is more complex and refers to the confused nature of gas pricing in the country.
Gas, unlike petrol, is not priced by the government. The supplier, in this case Reliance, is meant to discover the market price by inviting bid from potential buyers, but at an arm's length. The government can only step in if they feel that the final price is not fair. The first price of KG-D6 gas was discovered in 2004, when Reliance bid and won a tender to supply gas to the public sector NTPC for $2.34 per unit for 17 years. Around the same time, the Ambani brothers split. One of the terms of the split was Reliance agreeing to supply gas to the power plants of Anil Ambani at the same terms, $2.34 for 17 years. But Reliance expressed an inability to supply both of them gas, and both separately took Reliance to court. This, Reliance critics say, was proof that Reliance was pushing for a higher price. Reliance, however, told NDTV that they broke off the NTPC deal because of an unfair liability clause in the agreement. Reliance says that when they asked the oil ministry for permission for their contract with Anil Ambani, the government sent them this letter in possession with NDTV rejecting that request. The government argued that the $2.34 price was not market determined. Reliance says that they then went out and got bids from a dozen potential buyers and came back with a price of between $4.3 to $4.9 per unit. As oil minister, Murli Deora referred those amounts to a committee headed by the then cabinet secretary K.M. Chandrasekhar, which strongly rejected Reliance's quotes, saying the gas formula pricing submitted by RIL suffers from infirmities both in terms of the formula and the bidding process.
As I say,
strong objections were also raised by Surya Sethi, who was principal advisor, power and energy, to the government.
First thing was that there was an available arm's length price. The company had bid out a price at $2.34 per million BTUs.
That it would already supply gas to
at
NTPC.
That price for 17 years to NTPC, and for 17 years also the balance to the younger brother.
Right.
And these contracts were found to be legitimate by the Bombay High Court. So there was profit already at $2.34.
There was already profit.
Already profit. So where is the logic of raising the price to $4.20?
But overriding these objections, a group of ministers headed by the Finance Minister Pranab Mukherjee settled on a price of $4.2, arguing that the higher the price, the more the government stood to earn. But still, where's the proof of collusion between Murli Deora and Reliance?
Prices were hiked as per the Rangarajan Committee report, or as per the report of the Empowered Committee
of Ministers.
Of the ministers, and they, whatever they decided, we implemented that.
Anil Ambani suggested there was collusion in this series of ads he took out, and saying in his annual general body meeting that the oil ministry, in the guise of batting for the government, was batting for Reliance.
The Petroleum Ministry has publicly sought to justify its escalated intervention on the ground that it did not know the terms of the RIL-RNRL gas arrangement till recently. I am afraid that this stand is contrary to facts on record.
But Sanjay Joshi, a member of the Reliance-backed Observer Research Foundation, found nothing wrong with the price. Joshi, ironically, was earlier Secretary Exploration in the Oil Ministry.
I was former Joint Secretary. Yeah. The process as to how a price discovery has to take place, which meant approach the market, approach a domain of buyers, and then arrive at a certain price which you think is the correct arm's length market price. Because government share is dependent upon the price. This is how a production sharing contract works. Therefore, this whole argument that prices should be fixed low is actually an argument which says, please do not honor the contract.
The official reason given, let me tell you, the official reason given was that, this will raise the value of the share of the government's reserves. So that is the official reason. But
do you accept that, by the way, as a legitimate answer, that this allows Reliance to recover its cost more quickly, thereby the government starts getting a larger share of the profits also more quickly? Is that a legitimate reason?
Yes and no. You see, the government is not in this business for the purposes of only making profits. Okay, this is a commodity that is in short supply in this country. There are people who are investing in power plants. There are, people who are investing in fertilizer plants. That are the two large users of this facility.
The Aam Aadmi Party claims a subsequent letter Reliance wrote to the Oil Ministry in 2009, in which Reliance seems to say that the wellhead price of gas, in other words their cost of production, is under $1, is further proof that there was no reason to inflate the price from $2 to $4.
The gas price is a straight input into fertilizer prices, which would have a huge impact on the people of this country, and all that illicit money would go to Reliance. There was no justification for increasing it to 420, and yet it was done by Murli Devra. And now the recent decision to increase the price from 420 to 840 is even more dubious, because when Reliance itself had stated that their costs are under $1,
Reliance has denied this, saying that their cost of production in 2007 was in the range of $3 to $4. The FIR, however, alleges that this was only one of a series of favors that Murli Devra did for Reliance. In 2004, when Mani Shankar Iyer was oil minister, the ministry approved Reliance's plan to develop the KG-D6 block for $2.39 billion to produce 40 MMSCMD of gas. Just 2 years later, when Murli Devra came into the saddle, he approved an amended plan by Reliance that it needed to spend 4 times that amount, almost $9 billion, to produce only double the amount of gas.
The FIR alleges that Reliance was inflating its costs, and for a reason. According to the contract with the government, Reliance can first recover its cost before it shares profits with the government. So the higher the cost it declares, the longer it can delay sharing the profit.
The government intervened.
The FIR says that was one of the reasons Mani Shankar Iyer was replaced, a suggestion Iyer laughs off.
It's a wholly unwarranted and undesired compliment. Yes, I am an honest man, and yes, I do stand up for my principles, and yes, I have had to suffer a fair deal for being upfront and for being frank and explicit.
The charge, of course, has been of agreeing to their additional development plan, which hiked their expenditure from quadrupled the expenditure, while the production was only being doubled.
I don't know this. These details are to be worked out by the officers.
You were not part of this decision?
I do not even know what it is this. You don't expect the ministers to know all these so small details.
But Reliance claims the jump from 2 to 8 billion was spurred by a massive jump in oil prices, saying that the cost of drilling equipment jumped by almost 540% in that same period.
See, the best way to look at it is what were the comparable costs of other projects taking place around the world and in India itself. Now, if you start looking at other field development plans which have come around that time, and look at the initial reserves which were stated there to be, and then there was a revision in reserves, and the development plan was accordingly revised to fit the larger size of reserves, then the benchmarks say that probably the prices were almost at the same level.
But the FIR cites a CAG audit of Reliance's KG-D6 papers in 2011 as proof that Reliance was padding its costs. The CAG report doesn't say that in so many words. It does, however, raise questions of how Reliance chose its vendors.
Clear from the CAG's report itself, which finds that a lot of single tender contracts were given by Reliance to dubious companies for purchasing a whole lot of equipment.
Reliance has rubbished these charges, producing 3 independent audits from global agencies which found no evidence of padding of expenses.
Moreover, they argue that simply padding up the costs had no long-term benefits.
Most of the allegations by the CAG, and this is the major issue about CAG audit, which is unbridled. They took objections. They audited some 5% of the expenses, did a sample. Secondly, they took objections like that the CVC manual was not followed, you didn't invite tenders, and that is why they have come to conclusions that prices were padded. Now, if you are going to compare the price of a rig prices, as you know, in the global market shift from day to day. So it's, this is very difficult. If you step back and take a global picture, amongst deep sea wells, this is one of the cheapest implementations in the world.
But one of the petitioners on the gas pricing issue has alleged that Reliance brought back money from its inflated expenses through front companies. Annexed to the petition is this investigation by the Indian High Commission in Singapore dated August 2011. The probe found that a Singapore-based company, Biomatrix Marketing, had invested 6,500 crores in a number of Reliance companies, including in Reliance's gas pipeline company. But the director of the company, it found, Atul Dayal, has been an old advisor of the Reliance Group and the director in almost 30 Reliance companies. The report says it's highly probable these amounts have come from tax havens through a circuitous route, and the source needs to be ascertained. But those familiar with the development say that Atul Dayal is Reliance's counsel, and that investments by Biometrics were open, transparent and perfectly legitimate. These investments, they say, were made out of loans from ICICI Bank's Singapore branch, which ICICI has confirmed. Regulators have investigated the matter and found no substance.
I don't understand on what basis do they get this 6,500 crore loan. Let them show those documents. And why is it then routed through in this dubious manner through this legal counsel of they should do it above board then? What is the need for trying to hide the real owners of that company?
Coming up, the oil ministry finally gets tough when Jaypal Reddy takes over. He breaks his silence on whether that's why he lost his job.